This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. It's Alexa Linton here, and you're here on the Whole Horse Podcast. It's episode 64, and I'm here today with Daniela Kaemmerer. I'm hoping I got that pronunciation right.
Great.
Oh, nice. All the way from Hamburg, Germany. Thanks for being here, Daniela.
Yay. I'm very happy to be here, actually.
It's been a little while coming. Daniela reached out to me several months back and shared some amazing similarities that we had, and also some of her passions and her work in yoga for riders and really working with the rider to be um, I'll let you explain it more, Daniela, but
Yeah.
to be their best, really. And she also shared with me that she has a mare named Diva, and that just piqued my interest as well. Because I know what it's like to have a mare named Diva. So yeah, thank you for being here, Daniela. I'd love you to share a little bit about a nutshell version of your journey and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited because I've been a fan of your podcast for a while, actually. So it was kind of a fan mail email that I sent you. But I actually do have a horse named Diva too. Um, we've actually been chatting about how we've both tried to change her name at one point, but just couldn't because it just fits so well. But
Totally.
yeah, well, anyway, so I'm Daniela. I live in Hamburg, Germany, and I've been working on communication between horses and riders for about 18 years now. And for the last 3 years, I've also been teaching yoga to riders in order to make them better partners for their horses on a holistic sense. Because
Mm,
when I started doing my work with horses and riders, I've always been doing it for the horses, mainly for the horses to feel better when I leave. But at one point, I realized that I have much more impact if I work on the rider and make the rider feel better as a whole person, and therefore also be a better partner for their horse. So that kind of added up real well, and it all kind of blended actually with the work that I've been doing so far, because my horsemanship has been inspired by largely by Mark Rashid and his kind of, you know, way of working, which is also more a philosophy than a series of techniques. And he also works a lot with breathing and with energy and that kind of work. So
mm.
I've already been there, and then I added the yoga, and now it's just a one big horsemanship and yoga blend.
I love that. Yes, and what a beautiful combination of pieces to the puzzle for you. And you shared some exciting news before we got going that you're in the process of building your first online course. So
Yay.
congratulations. It's very exciting.
Yes, it is. Kind of scary too,
Mm.
but also very exciting.
Having built a number, I know that it is quite a process and not always as simple as we think. So yeah, kudos to you for that. And that will be on this on this work around yoga and horses, or horseback riders,
Yeah.
and finding our way. So I have curiosity here. So for
Mhm.
me, yoga and me have had like a love hate relationship. So I've been like, I should love yoga.
I
And,
know, that's what I've been thinking.
so, but then I kind of go, and I do like, the bits and pieces. Like I do my downward dog and my cat pose in the morning. And I do things like that to just limber up. But I haven't gotten to a point of making it a practice. So I
Mm,
would love to have you share, okay, how um to help motivate those of us that are like, I should love yoga, but
mhm,
what
mhm,
for you draws you to this particular way of doing things, this particular study or practice,
mm.
um
Yeah.
than anything else.
Hmm. Well, interesting that you would mention that because when I looked, well, as I said, I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and I've also checked out your website and everything. So that's kind of what I thought actually. So she should like yoga, but she doesn't ever mention yoga anywhere. So
Totally.
yeah, but I know many people like that, and I've been there too. So that's actually where I come from because I
Mm.
used to think that I was kind of a Pilates person, I guess. Um, but which is, I know that that's not the point where you're at right now, but that's where I'm coming from. I
Yep.
thought I was
Yep.
kind of a, you know, technical Pilates person. I need to work my muscles, and then it all makes sense to me that I will get stronger and that it will change my body eventually. And I couldn't really connect to the, I guess, spiritual side of yoga for a very long time.
Mhm.
But for a number of reasons, I started doing yoga anyway. And I noticed that the more yoga I do, the more regularly I go to the class, um, the better I am at everything I do. And that's kind of what sparked my interest and what really kept me going to this day because the more you learn, it's kind of like with horses, really. The more you learn about it, the more you see what's underneath, and that there's still more coming, and that it just keeps getting more fascinating, really.
Mhm. Right. There's a depth, it sounds
Yes,
like, that
exactly,
you've tapped into.
exactly.
Mm.
And uh, the the fact that it doesn't just leave you with the physical exercises, but that it also touches your mind and really your heart or your soul or whatever you want to call it in a way. That's what I feel is unique to yoga, and that's what makes it so potent for people, all kinds of people, I think,
Mhm.
but really but for riders definitely because it connects us to ourselves, and that makes it easier to connect us to our horses too.
Mm. Mhm.
And
I know there's going to be people on the podcast that know about yoga. I don't. I know a little bit. I mean, I know that there's
mm,
different types of practices, different lineages, maybe
mm.
we might call them. Where do you come from on that, on that level? Or do you come from are you working with a particular lineage of yoga or a particular type?
Well, I'm doing a mix, I guess. I wish I
Mhm.
could say I had this one lineage, but I kind of feel like if it would be too dogmatic for me, because I
Mhm.
like to, you know, look at different things and to kind of take what I can use and what feels right to me and embody it and live it
Mm.
and kind of work it into what I'm already doing rather than just following a straight line without feeling like I can also look left and right and see what's on the other side of the street maybe. So
Mhm.
that's kind of why
Mhm.
I've been browsing. I've been trained in hatha yoga, so like the most well, basic and well-known style, I guess, and Vinyasa yoga, which is very
Mm-hmm.
well spread right now too. And I'm also my own practice is also defined by Anusara yoga to a large degree, which
Mm.
is a yoga that is more alignment based, but it also connects to the heart in a way. So that's
Mm.
kind of the kind of style that I like, or that I'm doing these days. But I've also been trained in therapeutic yoga, and I'm looking into Vini yoga and the kind of yoga that Rod Stryker does, so para yoga. Um, so it's a blend really, but yeah, as
It's
you can tell. But I'm
I can hear the passion though of, like you sort of, okay, I want to look into these different areas of
yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah, I just say yoga a
Mm.
lot.
Ah, that's awesome. So for me as a rider and a rider that has never, really, I've done quite a bit of yoga.
Mhm.
But I don't do a regular practice, and I can't even think of the last time I went to a class. Um, what would be, how would you kind of share this work that you do with riders in terms of, yeah, some of the benefits that would come forward for potentially for them,
Mhm.
was it them slash me, in terms of doing a more regular practice?
Mhm. Well, most people start, or most writers come to me and come to my courses or start working with me individually because they feel stiff and they don't feel flexible enough in order to follow the horse's movements, or
Mm-hmm.
they're stressed, or they have back pain. So it always depends on where you come from, really. But what I mostly do with riders on a physical level is that we work on loosening the hips in a way, getting them more mobile, more able to follow the horse's movements, to strengthen their core in a kind of holistic sense, and get them to really,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, be strong and steady on the horse, and to create a certain poise that is oftentimes missing. And also, we work on opening the chest and relaxing the shoulders in order for the riders to really sit up and, yeah, come to a or find a neutral position in their spine and in their hips that allows them to sit in a comfortable yet straight and correct way on their horse.
Mm.
So that's what's
Mm-hmm.
happening on a physical level, or what we work on. But I would kind of, more like a Trojan horse, also um, deliver some breath work, or bring some breath work exercises and some meditative exercises, or I would work the breath work into the physical exercises in order to really relax the mind and
Mm-hmm.
open the mind to the stuff that's happening on the physical level.
Mm-hmm. And my assumption is that that's probably one of the most important pieces with horses is the mind piece.
Exactly. I think that's actually the most important thing. The physical work is nice, and all the nice postures you see on Instagram these days, they're nice, I guess, if you want that. But for me, yoga is about the mind, and the way the world is turning right now, I kind of think that that's what most people need to.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I've been seeing that. I just started the whole horse apprenticeship well, it will be a couple of weeks now once this is aired, but one of our first things is like, okay, grounding,
Yeah,
getting in the body.
let's meet down here.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like what it means to be physically and mindfully in touch with our somatic sense of ourselves,
Yes.
um, so that we can go, oh yeah, there's tension here, or I'm
Mhm.
experiencing anxiety or fear, or yeah,
Yeah.
that would be very important for riders.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. To kind of balance out what they do during the rest of the day,
Yes.
because that's what I think is very neat for riders, especially because for the 1 hour that we usually ride our horse, we want to be straight and supple and fit and light and soft and relaxed and clear and present. But usually we don't practice that during the rest of the day, during the other 23 hours. So it's really hard to get to the level that we really expect ourselves to be on for that 1 hour if we don't practice during the rest of the day. And the yoga mat provides us a safe space to do just that.
Mm. Hmm. Yes, yes. And for you, what does your typical sort of, throughout a week, what's your typical practice like?
Um, well, I usually do or roll out my yoga mat right after I get up. I don't always
Mm-hmm.
do asanas, so the physical exercises, or just a couple, and then I sit down and meditate for a while or do breath work. It always
Mm-hmm.
depends on where I am at that day, where my mind is, where what my body feels like. Then I do a couple of extended practices usually during 1 week. And I try to practice yoga while I ride and while I'm with my horse. So the same thing
Mm.
that I'm practicing on the yoga mat, being present and paying attention to my breath and paying close attention to my body, knowing what to turn on and what to turn off at every
Mm-hmm.
moment, and kind of like changing that at each moment is what I'm practicing with my horse too. So I kind of include the time with my horse into my yoga practice, if you know what I mean by that.
I do. I do. I don't always get there.
I know.
I've definitely been noticing lately, like, recognizing ah, divas can get tension in her when we're riding and going. I think I think there's some of that's me, you
Mm,
know. Yeah, it's become something that I've been more aware of, particularly with the summer that we've just had in the spring. Just so much. I think for so many people, this experience of more tension in their systems, more anxiety, um, and worry kind of just circulating
mhm.
in their systems right now. Are you noticing that as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. In my own system actually, but also in all the individual systems around me. But
Yeah.
and in the whole system too. I also kind of believe that what's happening in the small systems also happening in the big system because it's all kind of connected. Um,
Mm.
and I think what we all need is kind of to tune down and kind of center and ground and kind of or evolve or revolve back to the middle, to the center.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I would love, you know, I think a lot of listeners might be like, okay, like what would that, how would I do that on my horse? What would be the practice of that?
We could actually do a small like breath work meditation exercise in a minute, because it's usually small things that take us from the mind being full to a mindful moment.
Mm,
To
that's beautiful.
just a few deep breaths y- can go a long way, really. Um,
Hmm.
and mostly, actually, the most important part that I find in breathing is the breathing out part. Because when most people, when many people think about deep breaths, they only remember thinking about the deep breath while they breathe in, and then by the time they breathe out, their mind's already gone and somewhere else. So they will
Hmm.
breathe in deeply, but they don't breathe out. They forget to breathe out, and that's kind of what I'm working with my students in, or my yoga. people, to teach them to breathe out. So, um, what you can do on your horse is to count just an example, you can count the steps your horse takes while you breathe out on each out,
Mm,
on each exhale. And that will get your mind focused on your exhale. And you can also kind of see where you're at.
that's a beautiful little exercise. I hadn't really thought of that. Okay. And so, I mean,
Because,
it will depend obviously on how fast your horse is moving and everything.
of course,
Mm-hmm.
of course,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not depending as much, really. Usually, what would be a good, well, actually, I don't even want to say or name any concrete figures here, because it's a matter of finding finding out for yourself. Because if I say you gotta be at, I don't know, a certain number
Yeah.
here, you would try to strive for that number, and that might be good. But I think in order to start and to get aware, it's easier to be open and to see what happens. Because if you don't achieve that number that I'm saying, you might yeah, you might just stop the exercise and leave it, instead of just experimenting and going with it.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I invite your audience, each listener, to just get on your horse, maybe tomorrow, maybe today. Just walk around for a few laps, maybe, while you're still warming up your horse. I always find this a very valuable exercise while you're still warming up. And just to count the numbers of steps your horse takes while you breathe out
Mm, mm-hmm.
for at least maybe 5 minutes to start. And if you
Wow.
do that a couple of other times during the day, maybe while you walk on your own 2 feet and you count the numbers of steps you take while you breathe out, and maybe later you'll be, I don't know, uh, doing something else that you can count. I don't know,
The
that you
number
can
of
count.
poops you're scooping, I suppose.
I don't know, but it just helps when you set yourself a couple of anchors of activities you do during your day, where you can practice or to focus your mind on your breath. And that will
Mm,
really go a long way, because it takes you out of your mind and into your body. Because in yoga, um, the the breath is known as the bridge between mind and body, and it goes
mm-hmm.
both. So if you get to thinking about your breath, you're also diving into your body, and therefore in the moment, and therefore closer to your horse. So this, if you don't do any physical exercises, this is the one thing that I would like people to do.
Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great exercise and really good for, yeah, pulling us into our system so we're paying attention to something different. Especially when we start riding, sometimes I find if I've had a really stressful day or if things are going on, it's hard sometimes to not bring like my work or
Yes,
different stressors like into the saddle, you know.
yes,
So to have a presencing exercise like this to just, oh yeah, here I am,
yes,
I'm.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens to all of us, right? It's not a matter of not getting distracted. It's just a matter of practicing to get yourself back.
Yes. Yeah. And I know I think of this often in terms of the nervous system. Is that something that
Yes,
you look at in yoga as well as the sort of the
yes.
the regulation of the autonomic nervous system
Oh
piece?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Especially with the breathwork part, really.
Hmm. I would love it if you'd share the perspective that you've learned. Um, there might be some nuggets in terms of that process, the nervous system process.
Um, I'm still working on it, actually,
Hmm.
because I'm still learning, but I guess we all are.
Oh yes.
And that's part of the fun too. But that's another reason why I would recommend paying attention to the exhale,
Mm-hmm.
because the exhale naturally activates our parasympathetic nervous system rather than our sympathetic nervous system. So it's um, the longer we can extend our exhale, the more complete our exhale is, the closer we get, or the deeper we get us into that rest and relax state, and away from that fight or flight and freeze state that society and Western cultures kind of uh, gets us into all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's hard to be immune to
Yeah,
the hustle and bustle and the yeah, there's so much information stimulus um,
yes,
that we're each, inadvertently, sometimes subconsciously being exposed to. So we
and
can,
and so much pressure
and
too.
so much pressure.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, just I guess for me, and as I said, I kind of noticed that people tend to inhale but not exhale. We're all very good at just taking up pressure and just loading stuff on our shoulders, and breathing in, taking more and taking more and taking more, and taking in all these media information that is released to us, all these advertisements, and all the work pressure and the family to-dos, and the horse knowledge that kind of sets us under pressure sometimes too.
Oh yeah.
um, but we don't practice so often to let all that go, and to really exhale and take that off our
Hmm.
shoulders, actually. And that's another thing that yoga can do for us, by moving us in a physical way, but also by teaching us to exhale and to allow ourselves. And it's really, in my experience, it's a matter not so much of doing relaxation, but about allowing ourselves to relax for once and to take a pause. And that's a practice too.
Absolutely. Because if someone says to you, you just need to relax, you're
Yeah.
like, that's not helpful.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for that. I understand that. And, you know,
Yeah.
there needs to be, yeah, okay, what does that look like to, especially for, I know my nervous system, for example, is a little hummingbirdish, right? I call it.
Mhm,
And it runs hot, and so,
mhm,
um, I, in order to just exist in general, I need to
mhm.
have, quite a few practices that keep me, um, yeah, in a good zone, right?
Yeah.
I've noticed lately, I was telling you before the call that I had school until Monday evening, my first class back of fifth year osteopathy, and then I went directly to Tuesday morning. So got home at about 8:30 Monday night, and launched apprenticeship, my Holers apprenticeship, the following morning.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I've been and maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I've been in a place that I know very well, which is adrenal fatigue,
Mm.
and working with that, of bringing my body back online, when my nervous system has been sort of pushed to the edge, and my adrenals have been pushed to the edge. And I'm thinking that something like this practice, this yoga practice, for someone who has that kind of tendency to burn the candle at both ends, so to speak,
Mhm.
yeah, would be very, very helpful for them. Hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you want to share what you do?
Yeah, I would love to. So I have a couple of practices that are big for me, and of course, when I'm in this state as well, everybody know that I often will forget to do these
Yeah.
things,
We
and
all
that's a
do that.
part of the reason it happens, right? Is I get so busy that I go, I don't need to do that, or that's
Mhm.
that's not as important
That's
right now, and um it's been a real promise to my body that I've made. Kind of broke again here, but I not quite as badly recently as in the past, of not letting myself kind of dip below that red line, of the adrenal fatigue space. And
Mm,
so some of the things for me that are so important, one is that every day I move in some way.
mm,
So every morning I have, like I said, a very it's a brief stretching routine and breathing routine, but it's an opportunity to kind of go, hey body, how you doing? What's happening for you? Where is
mm,
tight? What's sticky? How is the breath moving in my body? It's also for me, as doing any sort of manual therapy. I need to know that my wrists are happy and my shoulders are
mm,
happy, and those sorts of things. And so I'll often include like a little strengthening routine as well, in that.
mm,
And yeah, so that's it. That's a part of it. But for me, a really big piece is nature. And I've heard this from a lot of different people. Is I think this is one reason why horses attract us so much, is that we actually derive some of our regulation from our time with
yes,
them, right?
yes.
So I know for me, the routines that are so grounding is going out and feeding my horses in the morning,
Mm,
mucking my paddock, touching base with each one, and checking their legs and giving them a
mm,
scratch, and
mm.
doing our dance together, right? And I know
Yeah,
that
be
not
able to walk with them.
all of our listeners today may have a horse in their life that they have the opportunity to do that with, but they might have, other routines that are
Mm,
settling for their system.
yeah.
Yeah, and I find that for myself, I'm very blessed to live on a beautiful farm in the Cowichan Valley with gorgeous huge trees and
Mm,
birds singing. And so
yeah, of course.
right, like it's so yeah, I feel so lucky to live on this land, and just to tune in to, okay, what's around me, like what do I hear, what do I feel, what's the temperature in the air, to have that sensory experience,
Yeah,
to bring me into my body, into my grounding.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I have grounding routines that I do regularly if necessary throughout the day.
Mm,
Especially when I'm feeling a little bit, out of touch with my body. And I also have the opportunity, because of the work that I do,
mm,
I have to be settled, grounded in my
mm,
body to be able to treat and do my healing practice and to tune in intuitively. So I think
mm.
that kind of saves my butt often, actually, in a way, to have to do that.
Yay.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
have some very beautiful dogs that settle me. And generally I hike them every day, but it's been very smoky here because of all the fires,
Oh,
down
wow.
in the United States, in the west coast of the United States. So we've had about a week of terrible air quality, actually. So
Oh, no.
yeah, so feeling all of you that have been struggling with that, in
Yeah.
terms of your daily routines and the ways that you settle your system, because I think it's becoming more and more common that we can't be outside in the ways that we're used to,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah, yeah. But those
Yeah,
are some of
that makes
my
sense.
my daily practices,
Yeah,
that I
beautiful.
do. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and I totally think you could call that yoga, actually.
That's
You know,
cool.
for me, it doesn't have to be a formal practice. If you have a practice that feels right to you and that connects you to your body and makes you feel like one with yourself and maybe even with your surroundings,
Mhm.
that to me is yoga, because
Mm.
yoga means union. The word
Wow.
yoga does.
And
And
it's
yeah.
great. That's great clarity, because I think, we get this picture in our head of, someone doing
Mhm.
downward dog in a classroom,
Yeah.
it's nice to know that there's lots of different ways to practice this.
I think so too. There are
Mm,
lots of different ways to see this, really, if you
yeah.
ask yoga teachers. But I think everyone must, or everyone should find a way that keeps him sane and
Yes.
that keeps him healthy and grounded, and that keeps them at their best. And I do think that movement should be an element of that, because we're just made for it, and we tend to move too little if
Yeah.
we don't pay attention.
Yes. Oh, it's so true. I had a client that I was working with yesterday. She's been in so much pain, and she says, "Wow, it's so amazing because every time I get up and I walk and move and, I get out of the house and I do stuff, I feel better." She said, "So many
Hmm.
people tell me that I just need
Yeah,
to rest and rest and rest." She says, "I don't feel good." And
yeah,
as we know, the physiology of that makes total sense. It's
yes,
like our lymphatic systems don't function without movement,
yeah,
right? It's why, you think you're going to feel so great after a day watching movies on the couch and you just feel awful.
yeah. I know. I can't do that anymore.
No, no, because your lymphatic system's like, okay, I'm just like sitting in my toxins in my body,
Yeah,
like
taking a bath.
taking a bath and all the stuff that should be clearing out of me. So, I think for some of our listeners, it's one of the things to remember is the lymph systems, these lymphatic vessels, like they don't actually work unless we move because they don't have any muscles in their walls like our
Mhm.
arteries. Our arteries and veins. They have this musculature to kind of pump blood around, but this lymphatic system that's clearing out all of the intracellular waste and you know um, stuff that we don't need anymore, um, that runs via the contraction of our muscles. um, and so if you're experiencing any sort of edema or swelling down your legs or in your ankles, one of the biggest things is actually movement to get that rolling. Just kind of, our horses, I think, are quite similar that way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And movement, is the other part that we get too little of if we don't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't live in a rural space, and we don't get to be around our horses as much as we would like, because we're tied into work and family stuff. And I think nature can do so much to us too, or for us too, just like movement.
Oh yeah. And being out there, I work with a lot of highly sensitive people, and I think that would be like the number one thing, you know,
Yeah.
for people where regulation is, more of a challenge because their nervous systems are more attuned to
Hmm.
everything that's going on, or differently attuned, I should say. Um,
Mm.
yeah, that being in, feeling the connection to something greater,
Yes.
sensing that the flow of things around us can be innately settling in our systems.
Yes. Yes.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. And also kind of um, putting things into perspectives. All the little things that our mind is tied around during the day. All of that kind of loses importance and is set into perspective if we just get out there and look at trees for a little while and
mhm,
spend some unplanned time or unscheduled time in nature.
mhm. Yes, yes. There's a lot to that. I know that there's a whole science behind
Mm.
what that is, and negative ions and all this good stuff. I don't,
Yeah.
I yeah, I can't pull it to mind at the moment. My file folders are closed on that one. Um, but I know that right now, especially, it's been very interesting here in British Columbia, actually, and very strange. It's been a very strange summer because you can see that people know that they need to go to nature, right?
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
all kind of stuck in BC and in this where normally we would go to nature across the world, or
you know,
Yes.
in the United States or wherever. And so it's been
Yeah.
this, you're trying to find nature and you show up, and everybody else is also trying to
Uh,
find this serenity in nature. I had a girlfriend who went up to this very tip of the island, very, what is supposed to be so remote and desolate, and nobody's there. And she got there, and there were like hundreds of cars in the parking lot, and families and kids with like just it was like they drove 10 hours to get to this spot that was like supposed to be, so pristine and remote, and
yeah.
everybody and their dog were there like trying to do the same thing, right? Yeah.
Enjoy the quiet.
Enjoy. Yes. So it's been an interesting summer that way, and different people may have found that same thing in their spaces. I've stayed home and gone to all my secret spots, to try to find that little bit of quiet, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's been good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
that's what people over here have been doing too. Basically discover the suburbs and beyond
yes, yes.
the parks.
Yeah. And I've never been to Hamburg, so I don't know exactly what the layout or how close you are to natural spaces. But
Yeah.
hopefully you've been.
Actually, Hamburg is a very green city, so we're very
Mm,
lucky. We have a lot of rivers, a lot of parks, a lot of trees, and in the
mm.
part of town where I live, there are actually so many so old trees. They've seen so much, and I think they're just so fascinating. I
Oh,
basically live here because of the old trees.
oh my goodness. Yeah, tree energy is a whole other thing that we could get into today. And
Yeah.
I love, I mean, I just did this grounding meditation with my group yesterday, and it's really fun because it's like all about being a tree, like, and people just love it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, and one of the I'll often ask them after like what tree they were, and it's so
Mm.
it's very like they're like I was this. It's very like they can see it, they can visualize that, and have a sense of that. Last night we had a lot of willows. There were a whole lot of willow trees.
That's beautiful. I want to do a tree meditation.
We could run through something today even, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, because I think it would just relate into this concept of, what we're all kind of working through right now is learning to be in better relationship with our nervous systems, and what you're sharing with the yoga practices and breathwork practices, and often with trees, like I work a lot with this idea that anything can be a teacher, right? Like any
Nice.
animal, any object, can teach us something about the way that it shows up in the world, right? So horses as a teacher, that can be very unique for each person, and then they have more sort of general pieces that they bring to the table around our relationship to power, and
Mhm.
our relationship to our hearts as well. Like,
Yes.
there's this sense with horses that they have this massive electromagnetic field around their heart. um, our relationship to our congruency, so how are we showing up, how real are we showing up in our
Yes.
relationships and in our life. um,
Right.
yeah, it's kind of cool to see, what a different being might be kind of sharing with you. And I think trees are really cool that way, and very helpful teachers at this time.
Yes.
Because you're like, oh, okay, so look at you there. There's a massive storm coming, and you just like hang out, like you just go, oh yeah, I got this. Hopefully, right? There's this sense of just being
Go ahead.
buffeted by different things, different forces, and being solid, rooted, strong,
And beautiful.
and so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that reaching up and bringing in the light and finding. I love seeing like a tree in a forest, and they find these crazy routes to get to the light, right? It's like, oh, it's gone
Uh-huh.
this way and that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but very slowly too. They just take their time.
Just
They just
take their time.
stick to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Teaches us
Mm.
about equanimity too.
Yes. Will you share about equanimity?
Um, yeah.
It was something I actually did, surprisingly. I did a Vipassana retreat, like, I don't know, 11, 12, no, longer. Long time ago, I did a Vipassana retreat. Do you know
Mhm.
what a Vipassana retreat is?
Yes.
Yeah. And it always blows people away to know that I spent 10 days in silence, given how very talkative
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was learning about equanimity.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. The and I remember learning about it when I felt like my legs were falling off in meditation. That was,
Mhm.
I was not very equanimous at that moment
Yes.
because I,
Yes. And how in yoga it's mostly about the question, how do we go about our own boundaries
mm,
and the ways in which our body is not um, the way we would like it to be.
yes.
And there's always something. It may be whether both sides are not equal, and you can just feel how the right side is so much softer than the left side, and you kind of at first you might tend to get aggravated by that, or that your hips are a lot stiffer than you thought, than you would think that you thought you would be able to sit upright, and you just can't, and all that kind of small things that just kind of um, if you don't pay attention, can really get you down
Mm-hmm.
and get you into negative mind race. And
Mm.
what yoga does, if you do it right, what the way I consider it to be right, is to learn to enjoy your boundaries and enjoy thriving within your boundaries in order to then kind of softly extend them or
Mm-hmm.
extend them slowly and kind of expand the space within them,
Mm.
but not by pushing over them, but by yeah expanding from the inside.
That's such a beautiful concept, especially if we think of it as in terms of being with horses and as a rider,
Yes.
right? Because so
Yeah.
often we're striving and we have this expectation or agenda of like it needs to go like this.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly, for ourselves and our horses.
for ourselves and our horses.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's also about judgment or non-judging, really, to learn to accept things as they are
Mm.
without labeling them good or bad, and just to notice. That's another thing. But I think that's probably what you learned at that retreat too, right?
Oh, yes.
Lots of noticing.
Yes. There was some very, very funny moments at that retreat. Yes. At various points, I started talking to bugs, which was quite humorous. And
You weren't allowed to talk though.
I wasn't supposed to talk, but I was like, "You need to get out of the path. You're gonna get stepped on." And then I was like, "Oh, yeah." Shoot, I just spoke. Oh my goodness. It got pretty humorous actually, to be honest. Looking back, I don't think it was at the time. Um,
Hmm.
but looking back, there was a few moments that I was like, "Ooh, I did learn a lot." Yeah, so but working through the body stuff was a big one. So for anybody who hasn't heard of Vipassana, you end up sitting, I don't even remember, but it's like some incredible amount of time, like 6 or 8 hours a day in meditation. Um,
Yes, and you don't talk
and
for
you
10
do
days straight.
not talk, and you do not journal, and you can't bring your phones, and you can't really even look at each other. So it is a
Hmm.
quite an exercise in
Yes.
being with oneself.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And I haven't, I had thought about doing one of those a while back, but I still haven't gotten to that point. And I might do it eventually. But what I keep thinking is that it's great and very valuable to do that and to kind of take yourself out and to really learn to be with yourself. And I think that's a very healing and very important experience. Very disturbing at first,
Yes.
maybe, but then very healing.
And very painful. Very painful.
Yes, very painful and
Yes,
irritating. Yes,
definitely.
I can totally see that. Actually, my brother did one of those
Yeah.
last year, I think.
It's
Last year.
powerful. There was definitely some places where I was not very equanimous. I was made aware of those things. And I also throughout had absolute, and you could all relate to this as horse people. Like I was like, oh my God, my animals are dying. Nobody can get a hold of me.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
That was my biggest panic, I think. I wasn't even thinking about the people in my life, but my animals,
Yes, I can totally
absolutely.
see that.
Yeah, so being
Yes.
away from them,
Let that go. Yes, I can see that.
it was challenging. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Oh,
But what I always think about these kind of retreats is it's good to have that experience, definitely. But I think it's almost even more important to kind of manage yourself
yeah,
in daily life because it's nice to take yourself out. That's what we experience on vacation, right?
yeah,
On vacation, everything is great, and we tend to become a different person because we're relaxed for once. Um, when we don't set ourselves under the same kind of pressure that we usually do, and when we have time to really enjoy and to be instead of just doing something all the
yeah,
time. Um, but I think what we all need to learn, and I include myself in that definitely, is that, to take pieces of that retreat and pieces of vacation into our daily lives and find a way to kind of, yeah, revolve back to
yes.
that point, to that state.
Well,
And that's the challenge that we
you'll
all
have a
have.
giggle to know that I never ever sat in Vipassana meditation one time since that
Yeah,
retreat.
yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I think that's usually how it goes.
yeah. Um, yeah, and I think you're right. It's a sense of, okay, being with where we're at, you know. I found it was so weird to reintegrate into my life, first of all, after that time
Mm,
away. And I
yes,
think that we can learn to build resiliency within our lives. I mean, I think, I don't know about you, but for me, one of my big goals is like, I want to feel like in my life, I have spaciousness in my life that I don't have to run away, to other
yes,
things to
yes,
feel sane again, right? On a
yes,
vacation or away. I want to feel like in my life
yes.
that I can be okay, and that it's not this torturous place that I'm trying to escape from.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
mhm,
And
mhm.
there's so many ways to escape that we use now. I'm actually just now we're watching that documentary about social media, which is very scary, by the way.
I think I saw someone post about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, but it's very scary. It's how social media uses us all the time, and how we're just, yeah, victims basically, because they understand so much more about how our brain works than we do
Yep.
ourselves. So yeah, we're helpless against that. But I think what we need to understand for ourselves is that anything we do, and that's kind of how I go at it, either causes tension or it releases tension.
Mm,
And we kind of need to find out what that means for us
yep.
and to find the right kind of balance for us.
Yes. Yes. And I love that in the when you talked about equanimity, the sense of like our boundaries, right? What we
Mm,
are, what we have space, for at that moment is kind of how I
yeah.
think of it as. And I see this so often um, for so many people is that we overextend. I feel like even this last couple weeks I've kind of overextended myself.
Right.
Um, and to stay within, okay, where can I viably exist in a good way, in
Hmm.
a healthy way?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And how can I keep myself on track and keep a connection to myself
Hmm.
even during stressful times? And that's so hard.
Yep. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
It's a challenge, and it's all a process. It's not about yoga. Despite of what many people think, is not about becoming enlightened at a certain point. It is in a way, but it's not about getting to a stage and then staying there no matter what. It's For me, it's about becoming better at, yeah, letting go
Hmm.
in all kinds of senses,
Hmm.
and becoming better at returning to that point,
Mm.
and to always find that balance again, and therefore stay closer to the balance and stay closer to the state you
Yep.
want to be in. But I don't think that any of us in the Western culture, that we don't live in caves, like some of the old yogis might have done, um, will get to a place where where you're just, untouched by anything by all the things that happen.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of clients that are like, I wish I could go live in a cave, but it's not.
I
Sometimes
see
I
that.
feel that way.
Sometimes I do too.
It's unfortunately not viable. Yeah,
No, and I don't think it makes sense. It
no,
makes it easier either. It
totally.
doesn't solve our
Not in
problems.
the
It's
long
just what we
term.
think.
Not in the long term, for sure.
I think it's the greener grass on the other side thing.
Yes. Well, caves are very damp and, cold and stuff.
Yeah,
So.
and think about spiders and mold.
Oh my goodness. That's
And then all
awesome.
your friends, you have to get them off social media and get them to visit you in the
Yeah,
cave.
come see
It's
me
gonna
in
be
the cave. Yeah. So lots of those complications for sure. Um,
hard.
that's awesome. Thank you. We're getting to the end of our time together, Daniela, but it's been such a
Oh,
pleasure having this conversation with you today. I've so appreciated
yes.
it. Hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate it too, very much so.
Yeah, it's been actually just chatting with you. I feel more calm. So you've helped with my
Oh, yay.
regulation
Cool.
process.
Great. And we didn't even do the meditative
I
exercise.
know. You know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna include. I have a little recording of one that I'm just gonna include for people on the podcast page at wholehorse.ca under your episode, and then I'll send it to you as well so you can try it too.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, totally. Mhm. Mhm.
Nice.
Yay. And would love to hear. So, how do people get in touch with you, Daniela? Where can they find you?
Well, I have a website, obviously, because I don't live in a cave.
Mhm.
um, it's body mind and no, it's bodymindhorses.com. It's part of my German website. I'm just now translating some of the website in English, and
Perfect.
you get to the English part just by just typing in bodymindhorses.com. And I'm also planning on translating the online course I'm preparing right now into English and launching it at the beginning of 2021. So if you're interested in that, you can just shoot me an email
Mhm.
um, through the contact form or through the email address on the website. Or if you want, we can also put it in the
Yeah,
show notes.
totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know when it's on and when it launches. It will be yoga for riders. Um, it will include physical exercises as well as ways to strengthen soft skills that make us better partners for our horses.
Mm, that sounds lovely. I- I'm excited to see that when it comes out for sure. That's great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Daniela. Mm.
Me too. I'm just now working on it, so it's just like, ooh, I'm excited to see it too.
Awesome. Woohoo. Creative projects are
Like
so
going
fun.
forward.
That's great. Yay. Well, thank you so much for being here, Daniela, and
Thank you.
really appreciate it. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in today. I hope you had as much fun as we did today. And
Yeah.
I hope you're
I
all
feel very, very grounded now too, actually.
good.
Very
Awesome.
something that releases tension. I like that.
Oh, good. Yeah, laughter. Laughter. We forgot about that. Laughter is an excellent way to release tension and regulate. So we hope you had a good giggle. Hope you're all doing very well as we can during a pretty chaotic time in our world. And I hope this podcast gave you a few ideas for how to regulate yourself upcoming. And we will tune in with you all very, very soon for our next podcast. Okay, everyone. Bye for now.